As the Strait of Hormuz reopens after war, is Iran now grabbing the wheel of a choke point that carries roughly 1/5 of the world's traded oil each day? With Trump's navy pulling back from blockade duty around Hormuz, is Mojtaba effectively holding the key to the key waterway that underpins Gulf exports and global prices? There may be no tolls for now, but is Iran quietly adding a powerful new condition for every commercial ship that wants to pass through Hormuz under the ceasefire deal? By insisting that ships must inform Iran 48 hours in advance, has Mojtaba inserted a clause that turns Tehran into the gatekeeper of who sails and when? As the Strait of Hormuz reopens after months of war, Iran is tightening its grip on global shipping, putting new conditions on tankers and cargo vessels that need to use the route. On June 19th, Tehran announced a fresh set of rules for every ship transiting the Strait of Hormuz, making clear that even in peace, passage comes on Iran's terms. Under the new regulations, all vessels must now register their details in advance before entering the strategic waterway, replacing automatic passage with prior notification. Iran says transit requests must be filed at least 48 hours before a ship's arrival, effectively giving authorities 2 full days to vet, delay, or raise questions about any voyage. The rules were issued by the new Persian Gulf Strait Authority, a body created by the Iranian government to manage Hormuz traffic and formalize its control over the corridor. Tehran argues that strict procedures are necessary because sections of the strait may still contain mines and war debris, framing the extra paperwork as a safety measure. For now, Iran says it will not charge any transit fees during the 60-day window of its deal with the United States, keeping Hormuz formally toll-free in the short term. The Persian Gulf Strait Authority claims that, during this period, Tehran itself will shoulder the costs for security, safety, and environmental services in the passage. However, Iranian officials have hinted that a permanent fee structure could be introduced once the initial 60 days are over, potentially turning Hormuz into a long-term revenue stream. The mere possibility of future tariffs on shipping is likely to spark new disputes in upcoming talks with Washington, which wants Hormuz to remain open without extra costs. Earlier this week, Trump publicly promised that Hormuz shipping would stay toll-free even after the deal's window, setting up a clear clash between his narrative and Tehran's hints. Shipping data indicate that 25 commercial vessels crossed Hormuz on June 18th, the highest daily traffic since April and an early sign of confidence returning. Volumes remain below pre-war levels, yet the uptick signals cautious confidence among shippers that the new arrangements are holding, at least for now. Restoring safe navigation through Hormuz was central to the deal that ended hostilities and lifted the U.S. naval blockade, making commercial traffic the most visible test of the ceasefire. U.S. intel assessed Iran could shut down the Strait of Hormuz at will after the war, creating a powerful new pressure point. Iran has gained a new strategic lever over the global economy that could influence markets far beyond the Gulf, U.S. agencies assessed. The assessment came as Washington and Tehran formally signed a new memorandum of understanding aimed at reducing tensions. Iran now views the Strait of Hormuz as a weapon more powerful than any nuke, according to officials cited by CNN. Iran learned it could harm the global economy without exhausting its military capabilities during the recent confrontation, the report said. Iran also learned it could pressure adversaries through strikes on energy infrastructure without directly targeting every opponent. Iran still retains large stockpiles of missiles, drones, launchers and attack boats despite losses suffered during the conflict, CNN reported. U.S. intelligence also found Iran rebuilt parts of its military-industrial base faster than many officials had anticipated. Officials said Tehran had already resumed drone production despite wartime damage and efforts to degrade its capabilities. Anonymous U.S. military source said, and I quote, "Losing control of the strait will be the biggest blunder of this era because it is a card the U.S. cannot counter without going all in. Now there is no way to undo the strait without amassing a massive force." Unquote. Trump officials initially believed China would pressure Iran to keep the Strait of Hormuz open because of Beijing's energy dependence. The administration also assumed closing Hormuz would hurt Iran's economy more than it would damage U.S. interests and allies. Days into the conflict, those assumptions had proved incorrect as disruption risks quickly spread through global markets, experts said. Analysts raised alarm that Iran could also turn to the Houthis to threaten traffic through the Bab el-Mandeb choke point. Closing both waterways simultaneously could severely disrupt global shipping routes and energy supplies. analysts warned. U.S. President Donald Trump and Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian have formally signed the Memorandum of Understanding. The 14-point agreement is designed to end hostilities between the two countries and reopen the Strait of Hormuz to normal navigation. The memorandum establishes a 60-day ceasefire period during which both sides will pursue negotiations on a broader final agreement. Trump signed the document during a meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris on June 18. Meanwhile, President Pezeshkian signed the memorandum in Iran, completing the process from Tehran's side. The agreement begins with a region-wide ceasefire, aiming to halt hostilities and lay the groundwork for a permanent end to the conflict. Both sides have pledged to respect each other's sovereignty and avoid interference in internal affairs, signaling a shift toward de-escalation. Washington and Tehran have set a 60-day deadline to negotiate a broader final agreement, with an option to extend talks if needed. The United States has agreed to begin lifting its naval blockade, while Iran will gradually restore normal shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has agreed to ensure free and safe passage for commercial vessels traveling between the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman for a limited period of 60 days. The memorandum outlines plans for a massive $300 billion economic development initiative aimed at supporting Iran's recovery. The United States has agreed in principle to discuss sanctions relief as part of a broader and mutually accepted final settlement. Iran has reaffirmed that it will not pursue nuclear weapons, while both sides work on a framework for managing enriched uranium. Until a final agreement is reached, Iran will maintain its current nuclear activities and the U.S. will avoid new sanctions or military deployments. The agreement allows for sanctions waivers that could enable Iranian oil exports and related financial services to resume. Both sides will explore pathways toward financial normalization, including discussions on frozen assets and economic access. Once initial commitments are implemented, negotiations will expand to address all remaining issues required for a lasting settlement. Progress toward a final agreement will depend on both sides demonstrating compliance with ceasefire and maritime obligations. Any final agreement is expected to be submitted to the United Nations Security Council for international legal backing and enforcement.